Right. Hello, everybody.
Welcome to our Tuesday afternoon community forum.
We are so honored that you're here. I think that this is going to be a very, very important community forum for many of you. First of all, for all of our international, Canadian and international community members, thank you for your patience. Today is going to be all right. Turn my volume down.
There we
go. The problem went. Susan always runs the computer, but Susan's going to be doing most of the talking today, so I have the computer.
Right.
And by the way, I'm totally incompetent at doing what she does so well. But so thank you to all of our Canadian and international community members for your patience. Today's going to be primarily about the CARES Act, which is the relief act that our United States government passed. And there is a lot to unpack.
A lot to unpack, but we are going to spend the first 5-10 minutes today
absolutely
just talking generically about any questions that you have, ideas that you've had that you want to share that are working for you. So we're going to start with general stuff, general ideas, and then move on pretty quickly to the CARES Act. So welcome to everybody who's on the call right now, on the call today. If you do have a question that's not related to the CARES Act, feel free to post it in the comments right now. Bob's going to be looking and post those, and pass those questions on to us. And also, if you've just got a comment, something that's working, or a feeling that you're having, or just let us know how you're doing right now. Let us know how you're feeling. Are you starting to feel, even though stuff is not great, are you starting to feel a little more settled? Or are you still feeling tossed by the heavy surf of all the stuff that's happening? So just let us know, and then we're gonna get started to answering questions about the CARES Act. I have a whole list of questions that were both emailed in to me and also from the Facebook page. I've tried to kind of group them into chunks. And have received tons of great advice from our team of lawyers here in the Michigan area that I think will really, really help clarify some of the questions that you guys have. So.
Good. So there's one question here. Christine said, realistically, how long do you think it will be before we can open up for business? And you want me to handle this, or do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that it just depends on where you are. If you're in New York City, I would just sit tight. So, I mean, everything is changing so rapidly that it would be improper for us to even give you any kind of timeline. Even the experts. A friend of mine shared a study that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and that was much more optimistic than some other scientific papers that were shared shared with us by valid, respected scientific sources. So I think it would be unwise and improper for us to even speculate. We're just retail experts, right?
Well, here's a chart that my brother, who is a scientist, just 2 minutes texted to me, and I would say again that this is a moving target. It's a great question. I wish we had the exact answer. It's a moving target. This is from. I can't even tell you exactly. This is a scientific website that he sent me to here. They're projecting all the peak of all beds projected is going to be sometime late April, and by June 1, significantly fewer. Like the peak will be well past, and mid-June, where things look better in terms of the virus. Now, what that means in terms of when any shelter-in-place orders get lifted, when movement restrictions get lifted, when economic restrictions get lifted, We don't know. That, I mean, and this is just best guess right now. Of course, you know, the scientists probably are better at guessing than Bob and I are, but that's what the scientists are predicting, you know, from my science brother, who is a PhD in molecular and cellular biology and has access to all of that technical information. That's what they're predicting.
And who, by the way, has been calling this thing all along right on the money. We had a Platinum Mastermind Group meeting in February. In January in Los Angeles. And Susan and I said, hey guys, we need to start thinking about this. This is real. This is coming. We don't know what it's going to be. But you need to prepare. But you need to prepare. And there was a lot of justifiable skepticism
sure.
in the room. You know, I mean, these are smart people, and it has turned out to be far worse. I mean, it almost seems quaint now to think that the biggest concern about the coronavirus is that there's going to be a disruption in the supply chain. I mean, I wish it was that simple.
I think you and I were convinced it would be bigger than that, but
anyway.
I mean, but anyway, you know, it's so anyway, his predictions have been very accurate, so take that for what it's worth.
Yes, and there's been several people, and again, I'm good at talking to you, not watching this and talking to you at the same time, but I saw several people mention that their emotions go up and down and up and down and up and down. And I think that is the case with everybody. I know that's the case with me. And I know, I mean, in our family, you know, the boys are home and the four of us are basically cloistered. And, you know, so many things are going on. I think the important thing, and I am not a psychologist, that's my clarification, but so this is not professional advice. But I do think that one of the things to really recognize is that no matter what you're feeling, it's okay. It's all natural. You know, someone posted an article that basically said that what we're all going through right now is grief. You know, there was a way of life. We had businesses that we loved and things that we did and routines that we had, and it's all changed.
Lost,
you know, and some of it forever, you know, sort of innocence lost. And there's grief associated with that. So one of the things that we have been recommending all along is the 10% Happier app.
Yeah.
And this morning when I was doing my meditation, it's a combination of mindfulness and meditation. The meditation was, it's okay. You know, that what you're feeling right now, it was a meditation created specifically for the coronavirus and during this pandemic. And the whole point of the meditation was, it's okay. How you feel, it's okay. You know, don't try to suppress it. Don't try to, it's all okay. You're human. This is crazy, crazy, crazy shit. And how you're feeling is okay. You know, we do have to pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off. We do have to be mindful that there are other people that we're living with and who are dependent on us, but how you feel is okay. So I think we should just get going here.
Check
Do you want me to see if there's any more?
Any other questions or comments right there?
A lot of them are questions that I think are going to get answered here.
Okay.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest that you don't put your questions in the chat right now because it will probably get lost.
Yeah.
So let's wait. So Susan, tell us about your methodology here. So
yeah. So what I tried to do was take all of your questions that you posted on Facebook or sent me in an email or.
And there was about 100 of them, wasn't there?
There are many, 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 many questions. And I've tried to group them into sections and consolidate similar questions into one kind of question. So let me just tell you the different categories that we're going to be talking about today, and then we'll go into some of these questions. So the first category that we're going to be talking about today is loan eligibility. Who's eligible for these Paycheck Protection Act loans? What are the differences between the SBA economic injury disaster loans, EIDL loans, and the CARES Act loan, the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loans. What's the differences? What's the similarities? How do they work together? We're going to be talking about how much the loan is for, how do you figure out how much your loan is for, and what can you use it for. We're going to be talking about loan forgiveness and how you get that loan forgiven and how much of the loan can be forgiven at the end of the period. We're going to be talking about paying your employees during this time period. This is like the vast majority, many of the questions were about how do I pay my employees? What if my employees have already filed for unemployment? All these different questions. We're going to definitely start to unpack some of that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the application process and a couple of miscellaneous questions that I may or may not have the answer to, but were pretty interesting. So there's a lot to unpack. Today.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got this information.
Yeah,
talk about the task force.
Specifically, no, I specifically got the questions.
So I'm talking about
how to get the answers.
Yes, how you got the. I'm sorry.
I got the answers from a wide variety of sources. I am a very high fact finder, and if you take a look at different types of personality tests and things, one of the things that I do well is go out, gather lots of facts, able to synthesize it down into hopefully understandable bites of information for you. So I got it from a wide variety of sources. One of my most trusted sources that I used was our law firm out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Very highly respected and an excellent law firm, an international law firm in Grand Rapids. They did some great presentations, and I've been able to ask my lawyer and another lawyer at the firm some specific questions as it relates to some of the questions that you had, and they answered. So great information.
And I wanted to point out, they had a coronavirus task force.
Yeah.
So the foundation of Susan's answers here came from a task force at a top shelf law firm. They brought all their people together and said, let's unpack this thing, because it was 800 and some odd pages.
880 pages, the CARES Act.
And it was very legalese. So, so the lawyers took the bill, and now Susan's taking what the lawyers did. And so I am quite confident she's going to be able to do a great job of unpacking it for you.
Yeah.
So how do you want to handle this, Susan?
So I think, do we have any comments or anything on the chat right now?
No, not really. Not really.
I think the chat is going to be a little bit tougher with Bob running it today.
You think? So wait a minute.
Maybe Nate, you can look at it too.
Belinda's on it. She's been watching it.
Okay.
So she's trying to answer what she can.
Okay, she's
good.
trying to answer what she can.
So I do want to say one other thing. Somebody pointed out to me, our friend JB Glossinger, that if people, if you comment or if you push the like or love button, it really helps with the Facebook algorithm. It helps this program be seen more. And because we want as many retailers as humanly possible to get this information and use this information, if Susan is saying something, if she's answering a question that is particularly pertinent to you, or if you're finding this helpful, if you could, show us some love, I think it would help us help more people. So
yeah, Paige is also on responding to questions as she can. All right.
So look at that, honey. I mean, ask and ye shall receive.
Thank you all for all the love.
Very
We
much.
appreciate it.
Okay.
So anyway, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the questions. Again, these are your questions that I took off Facebook, from email, from text, from chats that have come through, and I've kind of consolidated them into some similar questions. So let's just start with a quick. Let's maybe just start with a quick overview of what the Paycheck Protection Program inside the CARES Act. So that's one part of the CARES Act. There are other parts, and we're going to talk a little bit about the unemployment part of the CARES Act as well. But there's another whole huge section just for ginormous companies like Boeing and you know, GE and stuff like that. And we're probably going to largely ignore that whole section of the CARES Act today because we really want to focus on the stuff that's important to you. To me, those are the Paycheck Protection Act, the expanded unemployment benefits. Important for you to understand those, how they affect your employees and how they are going to affect your relationship with your employees. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So the Paycheck Protection Program was really designed to help small businesses, everything cool? Help small businesses continue to operate, to help cover your rent and maintain your employees employed so that you don't have to lay off employees that you want to keep on your payroll. So
they're trying to keep us, I mean, because we qualified too. They're trying to keep small business in business.
In business, exactly. So let's just start to unpack it piece by piece. So first we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of businesses qualify for this loan. That was one of the questions that we got. Small businesses with under 500 employees qualify for this loan. So any small business with fewer than 500 employees. It doesn't matter if they're part-time, if they're full-time. We're not talking about FTEs, which are full-time equivalents here. It's different. We can talk about, we are gonna talk about FTEs in a little bit, but it just matters the number of actual employees you have in your business. So most of you guys have fewer than 500 employees. You qualify. So the other question that I got a lot was, does it matter? Does my business structure matter? Do I have to be an LLC or an S corp? What if I'm a sole proprietor? And what if I'm just legally self-employed? This was a big question. If you are self-employed or a gig economy worker, so for example, maybe you're a massage therapist, gig economy worker, or if you are I had one person ask a really specific question. I have products and I go do pop-up shops in different places and I just take that money and I don't have a payroll, I don't have any employees. You are also eligible. Self-employed and gig economy workers are also eligible for this PPP loan, okay? So that's a big question that a lot of people have. Your business structure does not matter. It doesn't matter if you're an LLC or a sole proprietor or an S corp or whatever. If you have fewer than 500 employees, you're eligible. And then there's a whole bunch of little questions, things like, what if I'm still paying on back taxes? Am I still eligible? Does my credit score affect if I can get a payroll protection program loan? Do I have to be profitable? What if I'm operating at a loss? Am I still eligible for this loan? Pretty much all of those things don't matter. They are broadly and largely giving this money to any small business under 500 employees, within the guidelines of the Act. So your credit for this loan, now we're going to talk in just a minute the differences between the SBA economic disaster loans and the paycheck protection. They make them so hard to say. So no wonder the government's filled with acronyms, because the Paycheck Protection Program loans are different. Your credit score doesn't matter for the PPP. Your profitability doesn't matter for the PPP. Your back taxes, they don't matter for the PPP. All those things don't matter. This is a good question. What if I already have a loan, a line of credit, or a loan out, like a business loan? You can still take the Payroll Protection Act loan. Now, whether you want to or not and increase your debt load, whether you want to take the full amount that's available to you, that's something that you're going to need to decide as a business owner, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it is still available to you. You are eligible. Business has never been better for me, and sales are up. Can I still apply for this loan? Interesting question. I think you still can. I think you still can. I think you have to certify in some way that COVID-19 has affected your business, and there may be aspects of your business that have been adversely affected. It could be that your sales are up, but not up as much as you anticipated, over plan. So I think that this question is a good question. I think the answer is probably it depends, but I think in many cases you are still eligible to take this loan.
I think that when they threw this out, I mean, this is a giant, giant, giant bill. And I think that it doesn't make any difference, at least how I read it. And I didn't read it nearly as closely. I am a short fact finder, but I think that it doesn't make any difference how your business is, because when they start to look at those sorts of things, it becomes infinitely more difficult for the banks to process. When I did that interview with Eric Seifert, who is the principal at Left Coast Capital, he said, look, they're doing this through the banks because banks know how to process things, and they're trying to make this as easy as possible.
We're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can I share something else?
Yeah.
Because people are putting in questions right now where we are. Why don't we wait until the end, and then when we get to the Q&A at the end, or you find places where there's Q&As, because otherwise these questions are going to get lost in the...
Are these questions specifically about eligibility, like whether they're eligible for the loan? If you've got questions right now about eligibility...
There we go. We can do it.
Nate's writing them all down. Thank you,
Okay,
Nate.
thank you, Nate. Good. I'm trying to be a host and pay attention to you and listen to... So good. Nate, you take care of that. How does it? Good.
Okay,
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's great. So this is another really great question. Do I have to be closed to qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program? Or can essential services businesses that are still open, like hardware stores, pet food stores, grocery stores, things like that, can they still apply? Absolutely, you can apply. Absolutely, you can apply. Again, just because you're open doesn't mean that it hasn't affected your business. It probably absolutely has affected your business. So you do not have to be closed. You do not have to be mandated to be closed. You do not have to have closed voluntarily. None of that to be eligible to apply. Basically, if you're a small business, if you're a sole proprietor, if you're self-employed, if you're a gig economy worker and you have under 500 employees, you're eligible. Okay? So that's great news for everybody. Honestly, when I read through this stuff over the weekend, and this is like the most hopeful I've felt in months, because I think this is really going to do a lot of good things. So if you have questions about eligibility, like am I eligible to take this loan, put them in there. Or Nate, do we have any eligibility questions that have popped through? Specifically relating to whether or not you're eligible for the loan?
They're asking about independent contractors.
Independent contractors would be considered, I think, that gig economy worker. Basically, if on your taxes, let me just look at one of my notes here specifically. So if you're self-employed, a sole proprietor, gig economy worker, what you can it's looking at your self-employment income. So if on your tax return your income is qualified as self-employment income, that is what they're going to look at. So it doesn't count things like distributions, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute, owner distribution. But if you're the sole employer, you're self-employed, like you're a videographer and you go out and you do video work and you get money for that and you report that money as taxable self-employment income, yes, you are going to be able to apply for this loan. So 1099 workers, the same thing. Like you're getting money from your clients and they 1099 you, that money that you report on your tax return, that's the money that you can get. That's the qualifying amount for getting this loan. I hope that's clear. Was I clear?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So
You're getting lots and lots of likes.
Yes,
So I
so
assume that means you're doing a good job.
That's the answer. The answer that, because I asked this exact question, I talked to the lawyers and they said yes, it's capped at $100,000, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Any amount reported as self-employment income is eligible based on your tax return. Okay, so that was exactly the language that I wrote it down word for word because I wanted to get it right. So yeah, that was tons and tons and tons of you had that question. So I was super glad to get the answer was yes. Yeah, good. All right. Any other eligibility type questions, Nate?
Yeah, Ashley Kelly says she has an S corp with no employees and takes a W-2 for a very small amount. Does she qualify?
So Ashley says that she's filing as an S corp. She takes a W-2 for a very small amount. Probably the rest of it she takes in distributions. Do you qualify? Yes, you're going to qualify. The question is for what amount? And Ashley, in your specific particular instance, you may need to work with your accountant and your banker to find out how much you're going to qualify for. So
Here's another one. Sandy Lowry says, I'm a sole member of an LLC. As such, I cannot accept a traditional paycheck, but take biweekly draws. Do you think she's eligible?
I think you need to talk to your accountant again, but it's basically that's your self-employment income. So I think so, but I think you're going to have to talk to your accountant and your banker specifically. And the question is not whether or not you're eligible for the loan. I think the question is going to be how much you're going to be eligible for. So, but I think yes.
And then Leslie Nielsen from Boyne City.
Hi, Leslie.
My husband is the event coordinator for a cycling event in June. We don't know how much his event will be affected. Should we apply? We don't know how much the loss is going to be. We don't know what's going to happen.
So June, I think I'm going to table your question, Leslie, until
That's why I almost didn't ask it. Yeah.
Until we get into and I think the question on the timing piece of this, you're going to have to do some calculations and figure that out. But we'll talk about the timing on these loans in just a minute. So great question. I'm going to table that for just a minute. All right. Any other questions on eligibility?
No, I don't think so. There are a couple questions about payroll and things like that, but we'll just defer those till later.
We're definitely going to talk about that. Okay. The next thing on my list is, and again, these are your questions, and I just tried to group them into chunks. A bunch of you had questions about the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loans, EIDL loans, versus the CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program loans. Lots of you have already applied for the SBA loans. And it's interesting because we just had our Platinum Mastermind group call yesterday, and about half the group had applied like a week ago, and they said, wow, it's this long, complicated process. It took me a long time to apply. And a whole bunch of people said, gosh, I applied over the weekend, and it was super easy.
What did Jessica say? The hardest question was, what was my date of birth?
What's your birth date, right? So here's what happened when this CARES Act passed. Part of what happened was it relaxed the restrictions on the small business economic injury loan. These two loans are different. The Paycheck Protection Act loan is different and separate from the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan. You can get both of them. The difference is you can't use the money for the same things. So for example, if you get the Paycheck Protection Act and you use that money to pay your payroll and your rent, you can't use the money from the SBA EIDL loans to also pay your rent, okay? So they have to be used for separate things, and they can each be used for different things. So you can get both of them. If you need it, they're both available to you. So that was a big question that people had. The CARES Act the Paycheck Protection Act loans, I know it's hard, right? The I'm just going to call it the PPP from now on, okay? The PPP loans are specifically designed and are only allowed to be used for a certain number of things, and we're going to go over that in just a minute. The EIDL loans are designed to cover like a different set of things, working capital. You might be able to use that, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but like maybe that's the money you use to buy inventory with if you need it. To pay vendors that you're...
Or you're halfway through a construction process. One of the things that, we keep seeing is people, everybody was working their lives according to a plan, and then the plan is just disrupted or thrown on its head. So if you are in the middle of a construction project...
Like our friend Jordana.
Like our friend Jordana, yes. Somebody in the Platinum Mastermind group has a empty store. My tailor in Chicago. They're half moved, empty store, nowhere to go. So, you do business. Things happen.
The EIDL is specifically working capital. Working capital. Okay, so the capital you need to keep your business going. The PPP loans are specifically designed to keep your people employed, to help you pay your rent, and any more interest on mortgage payments if you own your own building rather than rent a building. There's some relief there we're going to talk about. So they're different, they're separate, you can have both. The one question was, will my application for the SBA disaster loan automatically apply me for the CARES Act loan? No.
Do both.
No, they're both. They're separate. You can do both if you want. Do we apply for the Paycheck Protection loan through the SBA? No. You apply through an SBA approved bank. So the banks are actually giving the loans. The loans are guaranteed by the SBA, the Small Business Administration. All right? So the banks are making the loans. They're being guaranteed and forgiven with money from the SBA.
So here's a great question.
Yeah.
Samantha says, I buy my inventory with credit cards. Can I use the EIDL for credit card payments?
My reading is yes, because it's for working capital, but I would need to go and learn, I would need to double check the fine print on that loan. But that's working capital. So
yeah, it would seem.
I think so, yes. Right?
Here's one, and tell me if we're getting ahead of things. Rachel Shank says, for businesses that furloughed employees, is the expectation that they hire everybody back and pay their payroll through this PPP?
We're getting ahead of it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, great question. Everybody's got that question, and we will.
Right.
We are going to.
So let me ask you this. So as far as the efficiency of, I want to make sure that people who are asking questions on chat get their questions asked. Mm-hmm. What would be the most efficient way?
Nate's capturing them.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. There you go. All right. Thank you, Nate.
We've gone over this.
I know, but I thought maybe. Okay, never mind.
Nate's on it. He's 6 feet away from us, but he's on it.
I just feel so helpless here.
Right? One other question, and this came from Rich Rose, and this is a really great question. One of the differences between the SBA loan and the Paycheck Protection Act is, like I said, they have relaxed the small business loans. Like they relaxed a whole ton of the restrictions. Like the restrictions that you had to prove that you couldn't qualify for credit elsewhere. Personal guarantees also for the small business loan. No longer have to have a personal guarantee for under $200,000 in loans. But what the small business EIDL loans still are doing is checking your credit score. And Rich asked, what credit score is needed to be approved for the EIDL? That's kind of one of they're only looking at your credit scores. I don't know. And my guess is it depends on the bank. Bank by bank, they're going to be making that decision independently, is my guess. Again, the loans are being given by the bank, but they're being guaranteed and forgiven by the SBA. So the banks don't have, that's the PPP. The Small Business Association has been much more restrictive, and still is going to be looking at your credit score. That might be one of the primary ways that they determine whether or not you're eligible for the loan, rather than this more extensive list of criteria that they had previously. So I don't know what the number is, Rich. I don't know.
Would this be a safe statement that even though the bill has been passed and it's out there, that there's still
there's still lots of details. And you might end up asking me questions that they don't know the details. Like when I talk to the lawyers, they're like, well, we think this, but we need still clarification specifically around this question of the unemployment insurance and your employees and all that stuff. There's still a whole lot of gray space.
Tightening up.
That's going to be in more direction. That's going to be coming from the UIA, hopefully quickly. But this was a big bill that passed in a really short time. So there you go. Any more questions about the differences between the SBA economic injury disaster loans, the EIDL, versus the PPP?
Yeah, Carl Tucker has a question.
Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl. What type of interest rates are going to be offered, or is that a bank call?
No, well, we know that it is capped for the PPP. The interest rate is capped at 4%. For the EIDL loans from the Small Business Association, it's capped at 3.75%. So it might be less depending on your credit rating, on your bank, but it can't be higher than those two numbers.
So Tina Miller has a question. Which is the one that you apply through your bank? Is it the PPP or the IEDL?
PPP.
That's yes.
Yes, and you have to apply for the SBA on the SBA website, but it's significantly easier.
And Desiree said, how do you find an SBA approved bank? That's probably on the SBA, or go to your bank first.
The first thing I would do is go to your very favorite bank in your town and ask them if they are going to be offering PPP loans. Most banks are SBA approved banks, not all of them, but many banks are SBA approved banks. So there is, certainly you will be able to find one in your town that will offer these loans. I would just call wherever you have your checking and savings account for your business, start there.
And one last one here, Craig McGill said, hi Craig, can you speak about the $10,000 emergency cash advance as it pertains to the EIDL?
Nope. No, I don't. I don't have any information about that specifically, Craig. So I can see what I can find out, but I don't have information specifically about that. I was really more focused today on the brand new Paycheck Protection Program information. But I did want to spend a little bit of time on the differences between the two and the fact that you can have both.
So now this is interesting and it's pertinent. So Matt Chiarolo, just got kicked, said, we just got off the phone with our banker. She indicated if a business applies for PPP, they will be ineligible to apply for any other SBA products during 2020. If you apply for EIDL loans, you can apply for the PPP later. But if you apply for the PPP first, you won't be eligible for any other SBA product.
All right, well, that's interesting. That is not what our lawyers told us. But again, you guys, this is so new that there's tons of details still to come. I mean, if that's what your banker who's going to be giving you that PPP loan says, do that. But that's not how our lawyers are reading the law. That doesn't mean that that's not how your banker is interpreting it. So it's a great question. Nate, can you grab that question, and we will ask the lawyer specifically so that we can come back and talk to that more. And also Craig's question that I couldn't answer. Can we grab that one? Thanks. So, yeah, I mean, it may be, but that's not how our lawyers are reading the law, but that doesn't mean that that's not how your banks are applying it, so.
If you're a brand new business, can you apply for either? Asks Christina Miller. I guess it depends on how brand new.
Yeah, brand new, like you opened on February 1, or I don't know the answer to that, because the amount of the loan is based on your past payroll. That doesn't mean there's probably not some way that they're going to work this for brand new businesses, because certainly there are tons of businesses all over the U.S., all over, in every state that did open on February 1st, right?
And Carl said, I was told the opposite from his banker. So
yeah. So again, this is new days on these things, but these guys, the lawyers that we are taking this information from they're really smart.
Really expensive?
Which doesn't mean anything really. But they know how to read the law, maybe in a way that a banker doesn't. But that doesn't mean that the specifics that come back from the SBA, after all these things start to roll through, we don't get new information, and we will continue to monitor and give you as much, every piece of new information that we find. We will specifically ask the lawyers as soon as we get off the thing about this.
Okay. All right. So everyone, we are changing out batteries here, so you will lose us for about 10 seconds visually,
the video feed,
but the audio is still here, so you have not lost us. In fact, Susan, you make a point of continuing to talk.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there you go.
I will.
All right.
I will. So
I think it's time to move on.
We're about to lose our video feed for just a second.
So hang with us, everyone.
Hang with us. We just have to change batteries in the camera because these are long community forums. It does. We're having to switch our batteries out in the middle here. So
okay.
So sorry about that. Good. All right. Hopefully we're back on and you can see us again. Don't worry, we're still here. All right. So the next set of questions. Any other questions about the SBA, Nate, and versus the PPP?
No, not that specific.
Okay, great. All right. So the next. So I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything here. Okay. So the next set of questions is how much can the loan be for, and what can it be used for? Now this is really specific and important information. So in order to determine how much your loan can be for, what they're doing is they're going to take a look at, you need to look at your last 12 months of payroll costs, and we're going to talk in just a second about what that means. Your last 12 months of payroll costs, and determine an average monthly payroll cost. And then you can apply for a loan of 250% of that, so 2.5 times that amount, 250% of the amount of your average monthly payroll costs, starting with the last month going back for 12 months. So that's how much money you can get. Now, the question that a lot of people are asking, and I'm going to look at my notes on this one here, is what does payroll cost include? Because it actually includes a lot of stuff. So this is important. This is really important. I suggest you write this stuff down if you are taking notes. It includes all salaries, wages, commissions, tips, anything like that that is compensation. Except if you have people in your organization, and hopefully it's you, people in your organization that are earning more than $100,000 a year. That it gets capped at $100,000.
So you don't lose it, you just only get so
You
if you have somebody
only-
who's making 150, you can only claim 100 of it.
Correct.
Got it. Yep.
So like if you had Jim at 55 and Luis at
30.
75, and then Susan at 125, you would average out 55, 75, and you could only use 100 of Susan's salary in your average monthly to make your average. So you can't use that extra above the $100,000 a year in salary to come up with your average. I hope that makes sense. Do people have any questions about that?
Does that, Christine was asking, does that include owner's payroll?
Does that include your owner's payroll? It does. If you're writing yourself a paycheck, a wage, a salary, yes, it absolutely does. What it does not include is any additional distributions or dividends that you pay yourself as the owner. So let's just say you pay yourself $70,000 a year in salary, and then at the end of the year you had money left over and you took an extra $20,000 out in distribution. The 20 doesn't count, only the 70 that you paid yourself in payroll.
Here's a great question from Anita. What about monthly fees paid to consultants? I do not think that is a payroll cost, but what would you say?
No, it's not. But the consultant can claim it as their income, their 1099 income.
And then what about if the owner only takes distributions, and then another different one that asks, does it include bonuses? Yes, the bonuses are included in that.
Mm-hmm. But again, subject to that $100,000 a year cap. Okay? If you, the owner, only take distributions, I would look to see if you claim that as self-employment income on your tax return. If you have employees and you're only taking a distribution, that's one of the areas that was a little bit of a gray area. Again, I think that there's that self-employment income piece that could cover that instance. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay. Again, I'd check with your accountant just to clarify that.
Yeah, lots of, on that same draws, what if they only take draws as
Yep.
opposed to paychecks?
Yep.
You know?
Yep. I think that's the area where they're talking about. Let me go back to look at my little note. Any amount reported as self-employment income is eligible based on your tax return. That's what the lawyer said. So you're reporting that as income somewhere on your tax return. So yeah, I think this is one of these gray areas that it wasn't actually written in the law. So everybody's trying to understand exactly how that works.
I think they call that backfilling.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
they have to.
They
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
because they had to push this through
Because,
so
you know,
fast.
and there's just all these questions, I only take money when it's available. What does that mean? And I don't think
Yep.
anybody really knows what that means yet.
Right?
Is that correct?
I think that's all that self-employment income is my guess. right? So those of you who are doing that, maybe you're going to have to work with your accountant, work with your banker to figure it out what the total number is. But let me keep going. So salaries, tips, any kind of vacation pay that you've paid your employees counts. If you've had to pay somebody a separation fee, like you fired them and you gave them a severance, that counts. Group health benefits. So if you are paying for your employees' health insurance, including the insurance premiums, that's part of the cost of having that employee in your business. Those health benefits count in your total number. Retirement benefits. If you are matching your employees' retirement benefits, that seems to account into the amount that you can get. And then any state or local tax assessed on employee compensation. So that counts. So all those things, you add all those up for 12 months, what you actually paid in those things for 12 months, and then you take the average. So you have an average monthly payroll cost, and then you can get a loan for 250% of that. All right, that's what the bill says. Questions?
I'm gonna go to Mike because they're saying they can't hear me.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I wasn't doing a good job of
And I wasn't reminding you, so
Sorry.
yes.
There's a lot of questions on if service fees to payroll companies like ADP are included, as well as payroll taxes.
I do not believe the fees are included. Payroll taxes, state or local taxes assessed on employee compensation are included. But I don't believe that the payroll fees, that's like you're just
It's
paying,
not really a payroll.
Yeah, you're paying for a service, that's not paying your employee. So see, if you, part of the way to think about this is the program is designed to help you cover the costs of keeping your employee employed during this time of this massive economic upheaval. So it's there to support you to keep your employee employed, right? So that's what it's there for. If it's about that, if it's about you giving the money to keep your employee on board, then it's likely it's part of that
that intent.
Yeah. Questions, Nate?
Yes. Two people had a very similar question. Barbara, I'll take hers. She says she has 2 stores, separate entities. She receives pay from each store. Can she apply on behalf of each?
There is a section, Barbara, in the Payroll Protection Act called affiliated entities, and I think what it says is that they have to be lumped together, but you can lump all of it together. So like if you take a paycheck from store A and you take a paycheck from store B, you can lump them all together. I think that's how it reads. It is, let me see, I do have info on it here. It's more specifically, it's the multiple entities portion of the act more specifically talks about if you're eligible or not with multiple entities. Like let's say you had 100 stores that had 7 employees each. Well, you'd have 700 total employees, but there are some, those would be an affiliated entity, and there are some allowances for whether or not you would be considered an eligible business. But I think that you just lump all that stuff together and you just apply for one loan is what it seems like. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Summer Allen asked, what about health insurance for the owner that's paid for by the business but is not part of a group policy?
It's group health insurance. It specifically says that. So probably not is my guess, but I would ask your banker, right? It's group health insurance for all of the employees. So if you only offer it to yourself, probably it's not an allowable payroll cost. But I would ask. All right, so that's how you figure out how much your loan can be for. Now let's talk for a minute about what you can use one other thing. If you pay somebody who resides outside the U.S., you can't include that in your payroll costs. So if you have somebody who you have a U.S. business and you're paying a floral designer that lives in Canada, for example, you can't include their payroll in your payroll costs. So anybody that makes over $100,000 a year or resides outside the U.S., those chunks, the piece over $100,000 or anybody that resides outside the U.S., they are not eligible to be included in the payroll cost amount that you can then figure out to determine how big of a loan you can get. All right, so that was an important piece. Let's see. Do we have any other questions?
No,
A lot of questions.
yeah, I think we're going to have to not answer every single question, or we will be here till 7 o'clock tonight.
Well, I mean, I think
Well,
probably a lot of
yes.
your questions are going to be answered as we continue.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep. All right. So so now.
And a lot of the questions are very, very specific to a particular, like Summer was saying, she was closed down because of a relocation, so she doesn't have 12 months worth of payroll. And a lot of these very, very specific. And so we're not trying to ignore your questions, but we do
don't
want
have the answer, and I don't want to tell you something that's incorrect. So something that's really, really specific to your own business like that, you're going to have to ask your own accountant or your own banker.
Yes, and so I think Nate and I will keep an eye on questions that will apply to everybody. And it's not, please, it's not that we don't want to answer every and all questions. I think Susan still has
many
well,
pages.
we have a long ways to go yet.
Yeah.
So we'll try to edit it, keep it moving forward. But a lot of this is your first pass at the information. You're getting really good information sort of organized for you. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to apply, and then your unique circumstances are going to sort of arise and need to be sort of shook out at that level.
Well, yeah, and stuff may change. Like the all of a sudden
they clarify.
The SBA may come down with a whole new rule that changes some of these things. So changes may happen, but this is the legal understanding as of
yesterday.
As of yesterday. You're right, because stuff could have changed.
Well, and there's already another 2 loans of relief lined up going through the House right now.
Yeah.
So, we're just giving you the information as of yesterday, the best way that we can, but with the understanding, the qualification that it may very, very well change. It may become more generous. There may be more relief coming, but this is where we are right now.
Somebody asked a great question about that, and we'll talk about that in just a minute too. All right, so here we are. We've determined, yes, I'm an eligible business. Okay, and then you've gone and said, hey, banker, I want to apply for this loan, and you've determined your 12 months of average payroll costs, those things that we just talked about, and you got your loan. Now, they are, you apply at your local bank, an SBA approved bank, and they are, I think, starting to take applications as soon as this week, and money should be coming out very, very shortly after that. That's the feeling overall from the lawyers was that the process to get the money flowing out into the businesses is going to be fast. It's going to be have very few restrictions, and it's going to be really easy and quick to get it. That was kind of the general consensus. All right, so you've got the money now, and there are certain permitted uses of the money in the Paycheck Protection Act. You can use it to cover your payroll costs. So all of those things that we just mentioned, your wages, salaries, tips, bonuses, your health insurance benefits and premiums, your all those things I just my head is this is complicated stuff, you guys.
I walked in and Susan's like, Bob, don't interrupt me.
I'm trying to
I was like, I'm just coming in to rub your shoulders, honey.
Like, don't. Vacation, separation pieces, retirement benefits that you pay in, state or local taxes assessed on employee compensation. Those are the things. So all of those payroll costs. Once you get the money, you can use the money from your PPP loan to pay those things. You can use it to help cover your rent. If you own your building, you can use it for your mortgage interest payments. Not your principal, but your mortgage interest. So you can either pay your rent or you can pay the interest on your mortgage with the money that you get from this. You can pay for utilities. Utilities include things like gas, electricity, phone, internet, absolutely all considered. One of the questions that we had was, does my internet and cable count as utilities? Yes, but your phone also counted as utilities. You can also use it to pay your interest on other existing debt. So if you have a line of credit out for your business, you can use your PPP loan to pay interest, not principal, but interest on other loans that you have out for your business. Now, there are some restrictions. These are the permitted uses of that money. Not all of these uses will be forgiven. In other words, free money, okay? So there's a difference. There's a set of things that the permitted uses, again, your payroll costs, all the things that we just talked about previously that you compile in order to figure out how much money you can get. Your payroll costs, you can use the money from your PPP for that. You can use it for your health care. You can use it for your mortgage interest payments, not the principal. You can use it for your rent. You can use it for your utilities. You can use it for interest on other loans that your business has. Like if you had a line of credit out before and you're paying interest on that, you can use it for that. Now, not all of those things will be forgiven at the end, only some of them, okay? So that's really important to understand, really important to understand. So the cool thing about these PPP loans is at the end of 8 weeks, you have to use the money that you got from the loan within 8 weeks from the date that you closed on the loan, okay? So you close on the loan, you get the money, you have 8 weeks that you can spend all this money on all these things, rent, paycheck, utilities, all these things within those 8 weeks. And then at the end of those 8 weeks, you can apply for forgiveness for some of the loan or even possibly all of the loan, okay? So here are the things that you can, that are forgivable, all right? So when you ask for forgiveness, payroll costs, again, that entire set of things that include, that go into your payroll costs are forgiven. Mortgage interest is forgiven. Rent obligations are forgiven. And utility payments are forgiven. So all of those things are forgiven. The couple of things that that aren't are things like interest on other existing debt and other insurance premiums.
So Marie Foley said she's got a credit card, personal credit card. She uses it to buy goods for her store. Would that interest be deductible?
That's a good question, Marie, and that question was asked specifically to the lawyers, and they were unclear as to whether or not. They don't know yet.
And then Carl had I'm sorry.
So don't know. Great question. Don't know the answer yet. More details to follow. Carl's question was
Carl was as they're using their line of credit to pay their people. So will they be able to have that money forgiven even though they've been paying their people already?
So the forgiveness part only happens from, it's not retroactive, so is what I want to say to you, Carl. So you get the loan, the money hits your bank account. You've got 8 weeks after you get the loan to spend it on all of these things, okay? And it's that 8-week period of expenses that can be forgiven, all right? So during that 8 weeks period, you don't have to use your line of credit to pay your people anymore.
Right.
You don't have to use your line of credit to pay your rent anymore. You don't have to use your line of credit to pay your health care insurances, expenses.
So even though you've spent it here, you're going to get it back because you're not going to have to spend it there.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so that money during that 8-week period is what's going to be forgiven. Okay? Now, a couple of caveats. If you've got employees that you are paying more than $100,000 during that forgiveness period, you would only get it forgiven up to the $100,000. Does that make sense? So if you're continuing to pay full payroll and you have employees that are making more than $100,000, the part of the payroll that can be forgiven is only up to $100,000 for those people. And also not to people outside the U.S. My head is starting to hurt. I hope you guys, I bet your head is starting to hurt too, right? All right. So
I'll bet your head is starting to hurt.
Yeah,
I think you need to take tomorrow off, honey.
Yeah, it's okay. So let me go back to some of my questions.
Here, stop everybody. I would like to request that you all give Susan some hearts here. And she's been working hard for you all over the weekend.
It's hard to understand this stuff, and I feel for all of you because it is like you're trying to run your business, not trying to figure all this stuff out. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Couple of specific.
Look at that, Susan. You've got a cascade of hearts. Thank you all very much.
So a lot of your questions were how much you can fly for, how can we determine what our payroll expense is. All these questions we've answered. Here's one that we didn't answer yet. I kind of did, but I'm going to call it out specifically. Can I use this loan money to pay my vendors? Not your PPP loan, not the Paycheck Protection Act loan. You can't use that money to pay your vendors, okay?
But this is why it seems to make sense that you would apply for both of those loans.
Yes, or maybe if you've got all this stuff covered, the money you have coming in from your business then frees you up so much in terms of your expenses that then the money you do still have coming in from your business you can use to pay your vendors. So either way.
Yes.
Okay. You don't want to, one of the things that you do need to be careful of is don't get yourself into an overextended position.
Just because you can.
Just because you can, right?
The money is inexpensive, but just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Right. Let's talk about forgiveness now. I'm going to switch around here just because we're going to talk about paying your employees in just a minute. For the forgiveness piece. Any other questions specifically about how much the loan is and how much it can be used for?
A lot, but I'll down.
Okay, a lot. Nate says we'll take them all a little bit later. Okay, so here we go. We've got this 8-week period, and then at the end of that, you can apply to have the loan forgiven either partially or entirely. So if you've used the money entirely for those forgivable expenses, you can apply to have the entire loan forgiven. Now, what that application process looks like, unclear at this point. This is like down the road someplace, right? And your 8 weeks starts from the time you get the loan for 8 weeks. So if you get the loan next week, it'd be 8 weeks. If you get the loan 2 weeks after that, it would be 8 weeks after that. So the 8 weeks starts when you get your loan. So this is the tricky part, and this is what a lot of people are asking about. You do have to, if you want your loan entirely, fully, wholly forgiven, two requirements. You have to use it for the specific intended forgivable expenses, and you have to maintain your employee count. I'm just going to say it like that. So what they want to know is that you have the same number of FTEs, full-time equivalents. So full-time equivalents is if you've got 2 part-time people, they equal 1 FTE. Rich Rose, you asked me that question. So yes, 2 20-hour workers or similar together equal 1 FTE. A full-time equivalent is 32 or more hours a week, is usually what's called an FTE. So, so what do? You've got these people that you've laid off, or they can't come into work, and you know, right? Here's the deal. Here's the thing
that's a technical term, by the way.
Right? Like, that's what everybody says. That's how I was feeling about it. Because, right, I know you guys have, lots and lots of you have had to lay off your employees. If you hire them back, so if you hire them back to the same level by June 30th, so if you've had to lay people off, if people have left voluntarily, if they've quit, if you bring your staffing levels back by June 30th, you still qualify for that forgiveness, all right? So let's say, you know, you get your loan now and it goes through the end of May. You still have to the end of June to rehire and bring back all of these people that maybe that have been on furlough, or that you've laid off, or that are, you know, stuff like that. So one of the questions that I had was, do you have to bring them all back at once, or can you stagger them back as business ramps up?
Or there was a question here about, I have a lot of seasonal employees.
Okay, so that's a great question. Let me take
right.
that one in just a second.
Okay,
that's
sure,
a great
of course.
question.
It wasn't mine.
I know, it's a great question. The answer about having them staggered back up, yes, you can stagger them up until June 30th, and on June 30th, if you have that same number of FTEs, now again, remember, maybe first of all, they don't have to be the same employees. Okay, so if some people have quit during the coronavirus, you can hire new employees back up to June 30th, and they will still count for your FTE equivalents.
Can I jump? You finish your statement, then I want to jump in for a second.
And you can layer them back in just so long as by June 30th you're back up to your normal operating staffing levels.
Yes. So here's what I want to say. This is, you know, one of these unintended benefits of this whole thing. This program here is about, you know, these programs.
Can you give me some more water, Nate?
Yes, me too, if you don't mind, please. Thank you. Bring a picture. That's perfect. This is your opportunity to really, really jettison a lot of dead weight. You know, we work with retailers. I mean, we talk to lots and lots of retailers, and so many people carry dead weight. And this is just a great opportunity, if you have to let somebody go, to not bring them back. This is a chance for you to reset your culture. You know, I mean, it's a different conversation than what we're having right now. But I just want to plant that seed. I just want to plant that seed that there are some real hidden opportunities in this whole thing, and one of them is around culture and bringing the right people back, or not bringing the wrong people back and bringing new, better people in.
Yeah, good point. All right, so does that make sense? So I think the question that this person was asking around, well, I've got all these seasonal employees. What they're really asking is how do we determine what our average number of FTEs is? Now, here's the answer. You're going to look at one of two time periods and pick the time period that's most beneficial for you. In other words, the time period where you had the lowest average FTEs. And the two time periods are February 15, 2019 through June 30th of 2019. Okay, so that's last year. Spring, winter through spring. February 15, 2019 through June 30th of 2019. Basically the same period of last year, okay? That's one of the time periods you can look at. What were your average FTEs, your average full-time employees per month? The second time period is January 20th, 2020, this year, through February 29th, 2020. Okay? So that's this year in the winter time. When did you have the lowest numbers of FTEs? That's the level you have to bring yourself back up to by June 30th. I hope I was clear about that.
You were.
Did I say it right?
I think you did.
Okay. Did I say it right? Do you understand? So by June 30th, you have to bring your FTEs back up to the level of one of those two time periods. Pick the lowest. Yeah? Do we have any questions?
There's, I think you can answer like 10 questions with one simple question that
Okay.
I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are asking about what about employees that have already been laid off and are collecting unemployment?
Yeah, okay. Those, if you can bring those people back, you can bring those people back and by June 30th, and they count. Absolutely.
And is it better to get the loan or to let the employees get unemployment?
Okay, that is a huge question, and we are going to be talking about that in just a minute. I just want to make sure that we're clear about the forgiveness piece of it. The other piece that I think that is part of the law, which I think is less important for you, but I do want to say it is, you also have to maintain your wage level. So you can't bring everybody back and cut all their salaries by half. You have to stay within, you can't lower it by less than 25%. So even though you have all your full FTEs, you also have to maintain your wages. You can't bring them all back and say, oh, and by the way, you're getting a pay cut, right? Your salary has to stay within, above 75% of what it was during that time period. So in other words, don't be a schmuck.
A lot of people are saying they're taking notes and they're asking if you could repeat the dates.
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to repeat the dates. Okay, so here it is. Here are the two. So there's two time periods, and you have to look at your average FTEs during these two time periods. Pick the lowest one, and that's the level you have to get back up to by June 30th. The first time period is February 15, 2019 through June 30th, 2019. So basically winter and spring of last year, or January 1, 2020, that's this year, through February 29, 2020 of this year. So whichever of those time periods at your choice, pick the lowest one, of course. You have to get back up to that level in order to have the full amount of the loan forgiven. Now, what if you can't get up that high? What if maybe you only get to 80% of your full employment for whatever reason?
It's just not busy.
It's just, or a bunch of your employees left and they're not coming back, and you haven't been able to, hire them. You can still get portion of the loan forgiven. It's just prorated based on how full your employment is as of June 30th. Okay, so don't freak out if you've got people that you've laid off. it can still be, parts of it can still be forgiven, but you just have to get up to your full employment. So good. All right, that was good. All right, let's see here. Let's move on to some of these questions. Other forgiveness questions. Do we have to pay loan repayments while we wait to find out if or how much of our loan is forgiven? You don't have to pay the loan for 6 months. There's no payments due for 6 months at a minimum. Could be as long as a year, depending on your bank. When will the forgiveness happen? You have to apply after your 8 weeks. When will the forgiveness happen? We don't really know yet, because that's part of this. That's part of it. Not a lot figured out. How will I prove that I've used the loan for forgivable expenses? Here's the thing: they do anticipate that while the requirements for getting the money are going to be very loose, the requirements for the forgiveness may be stricter. So what the lawyers recommended was you take that money from your PPP loan and you put it in a separate bank account from your regular expenses, and you track that money that's coming out of that PPP bank account where that loan is, and track that it's going specifically to those forgivable expenses.
That is a great suggestion.
Yes, so really pay attention to that one. Besides the things that will be forgiven, is there any mention of additional amounts forgiven due to loss of profits while closed by mandate? Nope. That's not what this is about. This is about helping you maintain your people and giving you relief to pay your people your interest on your loans, your rent, your utilities, to keep your store running and open if possible. What happens if the loan doesn't get forgiven? It is if the entire or any portion of the loan that doesn't get forgiven, you just have to pay it back. And it's a pretty long time frame that you have. I think it's like up to 10 years to pay it back, and the interest rate is no higher than 4%. So it's if you need the money, that's a pretty good deal. And a portion of it, I'm sure, at least a portion of it, you can get forgiven. Full-time equivalents, we talked about that. If a new employee takes the place of an old employee, does that count as no change in the payroll numbers? Correct. You can put new employees in. They don't penalize you for bringing in new employees to get back to that payroll level. Can they be staged in over time? Yep, they can be staged in over time. Let's see what else we got here. This was a great question. What happens if this situations, i.e. that we're required to be closed, takes longer than 8 weeks? I don't know. My guess is that this could be extended. There, to Bob's point, may be additional relief coming in other ways from the government. But we know that at least for the 8 weeks after you take that loan, you get payroll relief, you get rent relief, you get utilities relief, you get health insurance benefit relief. So,
and I think that it's important to recognize that this is going to be a huge help. But it's not the government's job to keep you in business. So while this is really, really, really helpful, if it goes, you should be making plans right now. You should be hustling right now. You should be doing everything you can to set yourself up for success. I would work from the assumption that there will not be more relief. When Rich is on this call, but if you listen to the interview that I did with him on how to manage your cash, he recommends that you create an 8-week cash flow plan, and you plan for no sales, because that's sort of the worst case scenario. So while this is really, really, really helpful, I would not count on the United States government to be a sugar daddy for as long as the coronavirus pandemic continues. So this is just relief to help you get your shit together. So no matter what happens, you can, so that we can all make it through to the other side together.
Yep.
So, you know, and that's not, I'm not trying to wag a finger there. I'm just saying this is going to be super, super helpful, but don't make it a crutch, because if you make it a crutch, you're going to be in trouble. This gives you some breathing room and some mental space to make some other plans, to do some other things.
Here's the other thing that I did want to mention is that if you get your loan forgiven, so let's just say you got a loan for $10,000 and that whole entire $10,000 was forgiven, that is not considered taxable income. So in other words, you get that money, but you don't have to pay federal income taxes on it. So that's also a really good deal.
Yeah, this is a lifesaver.
It's a really good deal.
It's a lifesaver. So for some people, this is what will move you off the mark. You know, a lot of people, a lot of retailers struggle, and you know, even though this has been a really, really bad situation, some people are going to come out even better because of it. It's going to give you that breathing room to really put some things into place. So I sure hope that you're looking at it that way.
Yep, I was going to see if I could find the answer to that one SBA. I don't think it's in there. Okay, now let's talk about your people and unemployment benefits. So here's what's happening. Here's the other big piece of the CARES Act is that there has been an emergency increase in unemployment benefits. And a couple of things have happened with this. The first thing that's happened is that people who are not normally eligible for unemployment benefits, like the owner of a small business, like a gig economy worker, like the self-employed, are now eligible for self-employment benefits. Okay, so that's one big, huge thing. And the second thing that's really big and huge is that they've expanded the unemployment benefit so that in addition to the state allowable unemployment amount that any person can get, so it depends on, it depends on your salary, it depends on, but there's usually a max that you can get for, a person who's claiming unemployment.
Cord.
Okay. So there's a max that they can get. So on top of whatever the state is giving them for unemployment benefits, they're now getting an extra $600 a week. So for example, in Michigan, the maximum that anybody on unemployment can get, the highest level, is $392 a week. So now that person could get $392 a week plus $600 a week, which if you add that up, is pretty good salary. Like, why would they work, right? And that's the problem. I think that's what that's the issue that a lot of people are having right now. Their employees are going, hey, if I file for unemployment, I get unemployment plus I get the $600. That's really awesome. So if your store is closed, right? If your store is closed, and your employees are willing to file for unemployment, I think that that's a pretty good deal for them, and it may be a pretty good deal for you. So what that means is you might not need to take the full amount that you are allowed to take with your PPP loan in order to cover it. So maybe you take it all, but you pay it back before any of the interest or penalties start to, not the penalties, but the interest starts to kick in. Like if you're not paying your employees, if they're on unemployment, you can't get that piece forgiven. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I making it clear? This is where I needed the whiteboard.
We have a whiteboard right there.
No, it's too hard. So you got to decide. So like if you've got a lot of employees on unemployment, maybe there's just a handful. Maybe you normally had 20, and there's only 5 of you that are still working to run the store. And you could get $100,000 with this Payroll Protection Act. Maybe you don't take all 100. Maybe you take just what you need if you want the whole thing forgiven. If you want the whole thing forgiven, right? You take just what you need to get you through those 8 weeks. This is something that you're going to have to decide. Take it to cover your rent. Take it to cover your utilities. Take it to cover the health insurance, like, because when they're on unemployment, you're probably not paying their health insurance. You shouldn't be. And take it to cover the payroll expenses for the employees that are actually working in your store. Figure out what that's going to be and take that much.
But I would disagree with you on one thing. If you legitimately have to lay off your employees because they are, because you have to, and you want them back, I would consider keeping them on your health insurance benefits.
Yes, you can do that.
So a lot of,
That's
yes, true. Be a good person, be a good human being. What you don't want if you have somebody whose family depends on you and your health benefits. But yes, I know what you mean. I just wanted to jump in there.
Yeah. So there's that issue, right? So I think if if your store is closed or running at extremely low capacity because all you can do is ship products, you can't even have people come do curbside pickup or whatever. State by state, city by city, that's very different. Consider how much of that loan do you want to actually use? Use what you can use and get forgiven. That's just free money, free tax-free money. Take it. Take every bit of it that you're going to use. And then consider, do you want more of it? But you might have to pay the 4% interest on.
Here's an interesting question.
Yep.
Deborah Campbell says, my employees don't even make $600 a week, so oops, and it just got,
right.
I just lost it. So while it makes sense for everybody to be on that unemployment, but do we take the loan to cover all the other forgivable expenses?
Yes.
And can it still be forgiven as long as I bring them back by June 30?
Yes.
Got it. That's
yes.
what I thought the answer was.
But you're like I said, you might want to consider as you're deciding how much, just because you're allowed to take $100,000. I'm just making that up as an easy number. Maybe you only need 50, so you just take the 50. Those are business decisions that you're going to have to make. And if you want it all to be forgiven, you need to get your FTEs back up by June 30th. So that's...
And there's one other question that I think is good. Is that unemployment full-time and part-time people?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That specific question was asked the lawyer again. What if somebody's only getting $75 a week in unemployment, because even if their hours have been reduced, they can still claim unemployment for basically the underemployment that they're underemployed, and so yes, the thinking right now is that even those folks will get the $600 a week benefits. Huge. It's absolutely huge. I mean, what the government's trying to do is put cash into our economy, cash flow into our economy to keep the wheels greased.
To keep people spending
one
way or another.
And buying, right? That's what they're trying to do. Makes it tough on this part of the CARES Act is a little tougher on us. Then the PPP is a really great thing. This part is a little tougher on us. So yes. And then the other question that was asked that I think is a really critical question is, what if I'm an essential business? Like, what if you're a grocery store? What if you're a hardware store? What if you're an essential business and you need your employees to run your business, and yet it's financially better for them to take unemployment? So, I mean, there's a lot of good questions, and you can, if they don't, I mean, you have several choices, I think. One choice is, if they don't come to work, you can fire them. You can terminate their employment, and then they don't have their job back when things, and it's going to be hard to find another job right now. That's harsh, right? And it's really harsh if you consider maybe that person has someone at home that is an at-risk individual and they don't want to expose themselves. And like, how do you tell who's really doesn't want to come to work because they are scared or they have a family situation, and who doesn't want to come to work because they just want to play video games and get $962 a week, right? I mean, it's super tricky.
So it's super tricky. Shed some light on how you think it should go.
Well, so one of the choices is you can fire them.
No. I mean, but looking at it, but I mean, those are the choices. But what lens should you look at it through?
Do you have a point?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll share. I think at some level, it is case by case.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what you try to be a good human being.
Absolutely.
What I think is going to come out of this whole thing is you're going to find out who's your friends. Who are the people who are going to, who is going to be on your team when we get through this? When we get through this, who are the players who are
all the questions.
Who are stepping up and and are looking out for your best interests, and who are the people who are just drawing a paycheck? They may have been doing a good job for you while they were working, but you're really going to have to make some hard choices. And I think that it becomes really important that you do it through the lens of, I'm going to try to err on the side of being understanding.
Yeah. Okay. Can I finish my choices?
Yes.
Because
Okay.
I think that there are some things that might help.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
So one of the things, you could just fire them. Probably not the best choice. You can basically put them on unpaid leave, right? And have them, get this unemployment because that's just what you think you're going to do. The other thing you could do is, because again, you're going to get maybe only a portion of your team. Let's just say 50% of your team's getting unemployment. 50% of your team is working for you, right? You still have the option to get the money to cover the entire team. So maybe what you do is you give those folks who are working hazard pay and bring them up to that level, because it's covered with the PPE. It's forgivable. You're paying payroll. And they just need to understand that it's going to go back down when things, for those 8 weeks. That's another option. The other thing that I think is really, really important is to really communicate with your team about why your business is deemed essential and how they're helping, and that you need them, and really the people that are, like you said, that are with you. If you've built that culture, they're going to keep coming into work. If they can, if they can, they're going to keep coming into work. There certainly are some people that really can't and really are in a compromised position, or if they get sick themselves. So I'm not going to lie to you that this is like a tricky situation. It really is.
Really is. And that's what I wanted to sort of ask you to speak to, but I did. So.
Yeah. All right, so do we have any specific questions about this part? I'm sure there's tons, and I'm sure I can't really answer all of it. But we'll go, Nate. Lay it on me, babe.
No, there was one. It's actually not too bad. There was one. Heidi was asking for clarification. She said, so did you say that if we lay someone off that we intend on bringing back, that we should continue to pay for their health insurance premiums while they're laid off?
You can.
You can.
You can. You don't have to. But if you do pay for their health insurance premiums, then that is a covered, that is a permitted, forgivable expense use of your PPP loan money. Permitted and forgivable expense or use of your PPP loan money. Yes. Yes. And I think that documenting how you're using all of that money is going to be important. So I would pay close attention to the documentation of how that loan money gets used so that you can prove that they are forgivable uses.
I was just laughing because I know there are some people on this call. If there's 260 independent brick and mortar retailers on this call, I know that there is more than a handful of you who are working out of a shoebox with your receipts. And so one of the hidden benefits of this whole thing is that people are going to start paying a lot more attention to how tight their books are after this thing is done.
And again, I don't think anybody has any idea about the exact process for getting those loans forgiven. The whole point of the money is to do that. So it's not like I think that they're not going to do that, but I do think there's going to be more documentation required for the forgiveness of the loan than there is for getting the loan. Okay? Ask your banker if they have some tracking sheets, if there's a tracking process that they recommend. So, see what they're developing. I'm sure everybody is developing this kind of stuff. Okay, what else we got for questions?
So do you have? Are we through it?
I am through. Let me just double check.
Somebody asked, how long is this going to take? How much longer? This whole thing. So we have been going 2 hours and an hour and 45 minutes. We have some general questions here. Can we just say, I'm just looking out for you too. Can we just say
we're going to be done in 15 minutes?
We'll be done in 15 minutes.
Yep.
So Mike, I think it was, Brett Clark. Yes, we will. And I'm sort of editing these questions, and if we don't get to your question, forgive us. I hope that you found the direction to go to find out the answers to your questions. Yes, Nate.
So I have two questions here that Nate, that we didn't answer about paying our employees. Can I pay my employees their wage to stay home and do nothing? Sure you can. Can I pay my employees full time even if there's only a little bit of work for them to do? Sure you can. But they may be better off to take the unemployment. That's the tricky part. Go ahead, Nate.
I just wanted to interrupt and say that in addition to the questions that you have before you, there's also been a lot of love and just people thanking you both for
thanks,
everything
guys.
that you're putting in this.
All right, wonderful.
It's really complicated, you guys. We're trying our best to unpack it. We're trying to use the very best sources we can possibly get.
Not we. I did look through the slide deck and I was going, oh God, I'm sure glad Susan's doing this.
All right, let's see what questions we have.
Okay. Well, we answered that one for Melanie.
We answered that one.
We answered that one. Mike said, if I apply for unemployment now as a business owner to get something going while I wait for my PPP loan to come through, will being on unemployment prevent me from getting the CARES?
Don't know.
Don't
Great
know.
question,
Okay.
Nico. Not 100% certain. Again, there's tons of these little teeny details that I'm not sure. Now, if you're a business, so the unemployment benefits here. Hold on. Let me just go straight to my notes here. Oh, not this one. Sorry. I've got a lot of notes. Not this one either. I'll find it. Read the next question.
As a small business with only 4 employees, is it better to take the PPP loan or have my employees apply for unemployment? I think you've answered that question.
Yep.
Tosha said, what if you had an LLC last year, but if January 1 you sold and now you're an independent rep, would she qualify? I don't think so.
Again, these are and
These are sort of one-offs.
This is a one-off. Yeah. I don't know the answer to your question. We had another question somebody asked on WhizBang Retailers. I am in the middle of selling my business. Like she closes on her business at the end of this month. Who should apply for the loan? Should I apply? Should they apply? Should we each apply for half? Should we both apply?
Talk to your professional.
You're going to have to talk to on those really specific one-off cases. You're going to have to talk to your Brent Clark, working capital, PPP or SBA? SBA for working capital.
What can economic injury loan be used for?
Working capital. And the thing about the SBA loans and the PPP loans, they can't be used for the same things. So the stuff that you're using your PPP loan for, your SBA EIDL loans, you've got to use it for different things.
Jonathan Fletcher, can PPP used for utilities?
Absolutely,
yes.
Including telephone and internet, cable, stuff like that.
We answered that one. Can we use it for owner health care if we don't offer employee health care?
Nope.
Sorry, Deborah.
Don't think so.
Chris Chalupa, during the 8 weeks, can we pay for previous rent that has not been paid yet?
There was a question about that to the lawyers, not about rent, but about paying. It was about paying off something else. It was like paying off a loan that had been late or something like that. And they said they didn't think so. But again, I think that's my feeling is no. But I would check. With your banker, with your accountant, maybe that one I would check with a lawyer. But my guess is no.
Is this loan intended for when we reopen for stores that are closed? Mickey asks.
Yeah, Mickey, but still, I don't care if your store's closed, your landlord probably still wants their rent.
Yep, that's right. You're still paying all those expenses.
You've still got electricity going to your store. And you're probably still paying for your internet and your cable in your store. You might be paying for some of your employees to stay on, even if your store is closed. I know a lot of you are doing things like Facebook Live from your home, or you're shipping off of your internet store orders and things like that. All of those payroll expenses, all of those utilities, any of those things, Mickey, can be used even if
occupancy costs
even when your store is closed. So a good add-on question to this, Mickey, is when do I apply for this loan? Do I apply immediately even though my store is closed right now? Do I apply a little bit later on, a couple weeks, a month down the road? Will the money have run out? That's the big question for me. I mean, it's a huge, massive amount of money. It's $367 billion. But there's a lot of us small businesses out there. So the earlier you apply for the loan, yes, your 8 weeks starts. The clock starts ticking on your 8 weeks. But you got the money. If you defer it a little bit later, if you think your area is gonna start opening up sooner, maybe you defer it a little bit longer, but you run the risk of potentially there not being any money left. That would be my only suggestion there.
There you go. Kristen said she has an SBA loan that will be difficult to pay. Can I apply for an EIDL loan to pay those loans?
Interesting. You can apply for a PPP loan to refinance your existing SBA loans.
Good answer. All right. Should you go with the PPP or pay ourselves or go on unemployment, asks Chris.
I think it depends on your individual situation and how much you're paying yourself.
Can you use this loan to hire new employees, more employees?
Yes.
Great, absolutely. If my employees are already getting an unemployment, what's the benefit of getting a PPP loan?
Because it's going to cover your other expenses like your own paycheck, your utilities, your rent payment or your mortgage payment, and any payment, any payroll that you do incur. Like let's just, even if your employees are on unemployment, you can still pay them some small amount and have them work doing certain things like shipping or repainting the store, re-merchandising, creating your, helping to create your employee manual, building a marketing plan for you for the next year. You can pay your employees to do all those things. That's great work for them to be doing, even though your store's closed and your doors are not open.
Okay, Rachel says, for businesses that furloughed employees, is the expectation they hire everybody back and pay their payroll through the PPP loan?
Nope, you don't have to pay them back right now. You just have to pay them back. You have to hire them back by June 30th if you want all
Forgiveness.
or a portion of your loan forgiven. Okay?
That one we've answered. We've answered that one for Mark.
Forgivable, both. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
2 of the 3 my employees would love to hire my one. We've answered that
Yep,
one.
she can come back in.
She can
Yep.
come back in. If we follow the PPP instruction and keep our employees for a certain amount of time, is this SBT forgiving the loan?
Yes.
Yes. Carolyn says, so I'm looking at my yearly employee earnings report. Would I add the gross payroll plus the state withheld, then divide by 12? Plus, yes, plus other expenses.
And there may be some other things included in there. Like I think I enumerated exactly what all the payroll costs are in the very beginning.
You did. Leslie says she has a yoga studio and all her instructors are 1099 employees. Can I still get a PPP? It'd be nice to have my rent forgiven while I can't have classes.
Yes,
absolutely.
You can. Leslie, you may not want to take all of the loan that you're entitled to. But again, like if they're all 1099s, you can't count the 1099 people as payroll. But your payroll, any payroll that you do pay, any employees that do work in your business, those things, and your self-employment, if you are doing self-employment tax, yes.
Sandy, I understand the PP window is up to June 30. Can my employees file or use unemployment benefits prior to my 8-week window of choice?
Yes, they can.
Good. Chris Chalupa, can we pay old bills from before the 8 weeks?
So it's the permittable expenses for your PPP loan are things like health benefits, payroll costs, rent, utilities. Can you pay stuff that you were late on before? Again, this is one of those areas that is not super clear in the law. My guess is that the answer is no. You can't what they're trying to do is for the next 8 weeks give you the 8 weeks after you get your loan to give you relief from the burden of these expenses in order to keep your people employed, to help you pay your rent, to help you cover utilities, to help you stay afloat during this disaster. Okay. My guess is that you cannot pay previous bills that you didn't pay, that it's for paying the rent and the payroll during those 8 weeks. But it was unclear. When somebody asked the lawyer that question, it was unclear, and more details coming, we hope.
Okay, so here's one from Katie. Katie says, we're a sole proprietorship under my husband's name and Social Security number. I'm a W-2 employee, but get paid very little, just enough to max out my simple IRA. Would it be beneficial for me, that is Katie, to go on unemployment or to pay me through the biz? Can I be paid more?
Yeah, you can be paid more. I didn't see anything in there that said you had to keep that. Interestingly, what it said is you can't lower your payroll below this certain amount. It doesn't say anything about raising your payroll. So I think you could pay yourself more. Hazard pay, right? Like, hey, I had to pay my people more to get them to come in. Yeah, I think that's okay.
So Melanie said, I've been off payroll for 3 weeks. I have no plans to file unemployment. Do I need to get back on payroll now to get loan forgiveness?
No, but what you should do is once you get the loan, Melanie, you should start paying yourself again. Because that's the whole point. Pay yourself and get that loan, get the money that you're paying yourself forgiven. Okay?
Okay.
Great question.
Do you need to be getting unemployment to receive the $600 per week?
Yes.
So that's a great question.
There are. I mean, there's a whole bunch more to the CARES Act, and one of the elements, and I do have this right here someplace. One of the other components of the CARES Act is payments to individuals and families. And I think it is right here. Oh no, this is the wrong one.
Look at that file.
Too many notes.
Okay.
There are payments to individuals and families that is entirely separate from any business thing that's happening. All the stuff that we've been talking about today has been business loans. And I know that for a lot of you, your business and your life and you and your business are not super well separated. By the way, not really the way to go, but it's true. The CARES Act also does have a provision for giving individuals and families a one-time payment, and I think it's like $1,200. If at a payroll rate of $75,000 a year and up to $99,000 a year, that starts to get prorated, and then at $99,000 a year in payroll, you no longer get that $1,200 per person. But so there is additional relief individually, personally, in addition to the business relief that we've been talking about with the Paycheck Protection Act.
Okay, so let's take this.
Did I say that
you
right?
You absolutely did. So let's take one more question, then we're going to wrap things up. There's some more questions coming in, and normally we go to the end, but I also want to protect you. You've been going strong for 2 hours.
Hey, it's all right. I'm good.
So, Kristen,
and we will, keep putting your questions in there, and if there are things that we haven't answered, we'll do our best to answer, and if we have answered them, we'll try to let you know, hey, we said it earlier in the webinar, find it here. So.
Oh, okay. So you want to continue to go?
No, I'm
okay.
saying, but I haven't put their questions there, and if we haven't answered them, we can
go back.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can try to answer them later on the page or in some other format.
Beautiful.
And if we have actually answered them before, we'll say, look at minute number 22 or whatever.
Yes. So Kristen said, okay, so I have enough savings that I could manage to pay bills for the next few months without a loan. I'd prefer not to use up those savings I've worked hard to have as a backup. Should I get the loan anyway because it will be forgiven?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely, you should get the loan. I would, especially if you've got savings, I would definitely get the loan. I would only take the amount of loan that you think you can spend on forgivable costs. Okay?
So
absolutely,
that is a great question.
Absolutely.
So,
and by the way,
good for you. Good for you.
Good for you.
So,
but it's hard. But even those savings can get eaten up really fast.
Really fast.
I was talking with a retail friend of mine who works. She's an executive at a really, really big retail firm, and she was saying. She's like, we're a cash-rich company. We've got many, many millions of dollars in cash in savings at the bank 4 times like this, and ours is all going to be gone in a month. So, the idea, Kristen, is absolutely the point is so that your savings can remain, intact, take this loan.
Okay,
Take
I agree.
Take the forgivable part of this loan.
Absolutely. So the first thing, to wrap things up, the first thing I want to do is I would like to encourage you to give Susan some love here with some hearts, because she has worked her behind off all through the weekend. She has been working very, very, very hard for you here. So.
Aw, thanks, sweetheart.
So
it's and like I said, some of this, it may change. The answers that I gave today, that somebody could come out, the SBA or the government could come out and make a change to how it was written. So if there's anything like that, we'll keep you posted. It's complicated. It's complicated. It's all complicated. This is our best guess. Again, I am not a lawyer, but we took all of the information from our lawyers. I asked specific questions to the lawyers that I knew you would be asking. I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice.
And it's interesting, honey, because initially we had arranged to do an interview with a lawyer, and we wouldn't have had 2 hours with her.
Yeah.
So this actually worked out.
She still may do an interview with us tomorrow. She got laryngitis and she can't talk.
Oh, that's a problem.
She's trying. I asked her if she would even just do even if we could just do a typed interview. If you've got additional questions that we can send to her, we will do that.
Which is very, very, very generous of her.
Super generous.
So
they usually get paid for this stuff, people. So.
So here's the scoop. This has been a real gift to all of us as small business people.
It's huge.
And and for a lot of us, this is and I'm just saying, sort of the royal we here. For a lot of us, this is what's going to save us. But I really, really want to encourage all of us to recognize that this is a life raft or a life ring or it's a mechanism to save us. But at the end of the day, I sure hope that we're all learning the lessons we need to learn so that when we do get through this together, we as a community of small to mid-size independent brick and mortar retailers are better positioned, right? This is a wake-up call for a lot of people. You do want to have a little cushion, a little backup. You do want to keep your books in order. So if you need to make a loan application in a hurry, you don't have to go back and spend months getting everything put together. You do want to manage your inventory professionally. You do want to market your business correctly. So all of this is difficult, and I've shared several times. I hope that you're watching the podcast every morning. That I've been through 3 separate crises in my business. Crises, I never say it right.
That's all right.
Crises in my business, and never anything like this, never a pandemic. But
nobody's been through something like this.
Nobody's been through something like this, but every single time you go through something like this, if you're smart, which I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm smart enough to learn something every single time, that you're better because of it. So, please don't take this opportunity and squander it. Take this opportunity and use it and invest in yourself, invest in your business, invest in your people. Use this opportunity wisely. Use it wisely. The government's coming to help us, but now it's up to us to help ourselves. So, Susan, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You were awesome.
Thank you.
You were awesome. I'm going to go pour you a glass of wine.
I will take that. I just want to leave you with one last thought, because I'm just thinking about all the questions and all the different situations that you're all in, and there are really multiple options for relief, and each one of you are individuals, and each one of your businesses are different. So if you're unclear whether this is better, the PPP is better, or the unemployment is better, or if you can do both, or, I would highly recommend that you take your individual situations and ask your own personal accountant, ask your own personal lawyer, because they know more about your individual situations than we do. What we can do is help you kind of understand the broader framework of what's happening, and then you need to take that information and use it to the best of your individual abilities. So cute. There are little kids running out in the hall right now, and they keep picking their little faces up and looking at us in the window. It's hilarious. But I do encourage you, because I really, really feel like there's relief for everyone in this bill. And the trick is for you in your own individual situation to find the combination of benefits that's going to be best for you. So that's all. That was my final take on the whole thing.
All right, really nicely done.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Good. Thanks. We'll see you tomorrow morning
So
on the podcast.
let's go back and just really, really quickly, a couple of things. If you don't know, if you're new to our community, every morning we do a podcast. We broadcast a recording of the podcast live. It happens at 9:30 in the morning here on the WhizBang Retailers page. It's about 15 minutes long. I do that every Tuesday. We have at 1:00 p.m. Eastern, we have one of these community forums.
Not usually this long.
Right now, and all of the podcasts 5 days a week are available on all major podcast platforms. So if you go to our binge watch page, the WhizBang Training binge watch page, at whizbangtraining.com/coronavirus, you'll find all of the podcasts, all of the previous community forums. We've done interviews with Rich Rose on cash flow, with Maureen Doran on her clienteling program, with Eric Seifert, who is an SBA loan expert, Bob Zeckel.
Candace Daniolo on social selling, really great.
Bob Zeckel on, there's Crystal Vokaitis. We just posted an interview with Crystal Vokaitis.
Great interview with Crystal on social media.
Tomorrow I'm interviewing Mark Weiss, the president and CEO of Management One. Basically, there's a lot of stuff for you to help you stay inspired, stay motivated, giving you the tactics, the strategies, the tools and techniques that you need to make it through this. To stay in business, because we are all going to. Oh, did I mention?
Survive and advance.
Survive and advance. So, but on that page, on that binge watch page, there are links to all of the major podcast
and all of our social media platforms.
And all of our social media platforms. If you have not subscribed to our free email tip of the week, go to whizbangtraining.com and you'll get a free tip every Wednesday. We are on tip number
897, I think.
We've been writing tips for a long time. And then on Monday, you'll get my video blog, Real Retail TV. We're here for you. There are a lot of resources that are, there for you. And we'd love to, have you take advantage of them. One final thing, we have taken all of our products and programs and reduce the price.
Put them all on sale.
Put them all on sale. So if you're sitting at home and you want to become a better retailer, the Retail Mastery System might be a great investment for you. But everything that every day we're thinking about what we can do for you. And these are just some of the things. So whizbangtraining.com/coronavirus. Am I missing anything?
I think that's it.
Okay.
That's plenty.
That's plenty.
Nate, thanks for a great job today. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming in. We did practice
social distance with us.
And we did practice social distancing. So all of you stay safe. Remember, we're all in this together, and we will all get through the other side of this together. See you later, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.